welcome to PAC-B TV, the local access station out of Baldwinsville, New York. And I'm Lisa Saunders, and I'm excited to have this young author with us today, Micah. Micah, tell us who you are and what you're writing these days.
My name is Micah Hutchins. I live in West Virginia. I am writing a book series called The Divide. I started writing it, I would say, back in 2019. I've been writing since I was about 17 years old. That was in 2014. So it took about 5 years of writing short stories, developing my website, writing some different. I wrote 2 novels that were just kind of for me and my benefit and for fun. And then in 2019, I started developing the Divide series.
Now, you have an interesting day job. You used to work nights, but now you have a day job. What is that?
I work as a sheriff deputy in West Virginia and in one of the counties there.
Now, is any of what happens to you on a day-to-day basis, is any of that inspiration, or where do you get your ideas from? And tell us what your series is about. Your back cover was very intriguing.
Okay, so some of my job definitely plays a role in some of my story ideas and some of the realistic ideas that I come up with, because it's an action, suspense story. So there's guns and shooting and action and stuff like that I do draw some from my day job. I'll read you the back cover here of the book. So this is the first Divide book that I wrote, and this is the synopsis for it. The United States, as they knew it, was gone. Now divided into 4 sections, the country teeters on the edge of an all-out second civil war. Nolan Wesley, along with his best friend, Julian Miles, struggled to survive in New York City against the wolves and the corrupt NYPD. Nolan covers all his bases to protect himself and his best friend until one day he finds himself in a deadly standoff with the NYPD to protect a mysterious girl. Now, the most wanted man in New York City, Nolan must leave his home and city and travel to the unknown or fight with the people he cares for the most.
No, fighting for the people he cares for the most. I have to say, that is always been you. You've ever since I'll tell everybody. This is my cousin. Mike is my second cousin, but he's kind of like a nephew age. And ever since you were a little boy, you were off fighting and protecting the weak. So this is kind of interesting that your personality is not only in your career, but in your writing. So that was really sweet. I love your back cover description. Now, is this hero actually fighting real wolves?
No, so a quick way to summarize it is the Texas secedes from the United States, which forces the government to either make a decision to let them go or to fight against them. So the government goes after Texas, which causes a moral dilemma among the rest of the United States, and they try to overthrow the government. And that results in a split, which I'll show you here. The United States ends up being split. You have the wolves, which they call themselves the Eastern States of America, but they're summarized as the wolves based on how they run or lack of running the East Coast. And then you have Texas, which has become their own. The new Texas Republic has become kind of their own country. And then the old government has gone to the West Coast, and they've become the Pacific States of America. So throughout the book, it's summarized as the PSA, the NTR, and the wolves. And this is kind of no man's land. And that's
so nobody owns it, or is it just filled with bad guys and you're scared to cross into that territory?
It's the modern day Wild West, where it's just kind of, and a lot of the story takes place into the Divide, hence the name. But it kind of starts out in New York City with, and my main character, he likes to lay low at first. He just kind of wants to survive. That's his main thing. It's like, just survive, get by, and hope the country fixes itself. But kind of as the book progresses, he realizes that, he either has to turn a blind eye to a lot of stuff that's going on just to survive, or he has to risk his own neck to kind of fix things on his own.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like today.
Yeah.
Wow. So where'd you get these ideas for this kind of story?
So I have always had kind of a scene in my mind that I worked on for a while that had like a big abandoned, like a big city like New York City that's just kind of lawless. And I've written scene after scene just on my own for short stories and whatnot that I kind of dabbled in. And once I picked up one of those scenes, that was kind of an inspiration for this story. And it does look like a lot of modern day events, but I actually did not plan it. This was written before a lot of these modern day events kind of unfolded. So it lines up well, but it's not inspired by that. I will say, some people have asked me, like, in the first book, the NYPD is the main bad guy, and you're a police officer. So how does that kind of coincide? And I love law enforcement. I love what I do. But of course, in New York City, I wanted, if the government falls, I wanted a bad guy that wasn't a government entity. And so that's what inspired the NYPD, being the corrupt source of, they no longer have rules and regulations. So they've kind of become their own militant force within the city.
Wow, I picture this being a film someday, like a series. Is that what now you've been in movies, haven't you?
I've been in, my father's a filmmaker, so I've been in some of his movies. Acting's never been my forte. I've looked into screenwriting, so one day I'll probably transfer this book into a screenplay, whether it be for a series or whether it be for movies. This book, so the first book that I have of The Divide, I actually have plans to have 12 books in the series. There's going to be 5 Divide. So The Divide will have 5 different books. And then
Hmm.
there's going to be a series of prequel series that takes place in the same world with different characters that are 3 books, and that's called The Courier. And then I'll have 3 books that are a prequel series that take place from one of the or 3 of the characters from the Divide series. It's their story, their origin story, and that's the beginning of how the country fell apart. It takes place in Texas. So that'll be 11 of the books, and then my final book will be called The Journal. And throughout the whole book, as you read it, you kind of see that the main characters of the story are being interviewed by someone, and you don't ever know who's interviewing them until the end of the book. I'm sorry, until the journal will kind of summarize. It'll be the story of the person who interviews them. So it's
Now, you can get these on Amazon already, right?
yes, yes. So
Okay.
you can get the first 4 Divide books are on Amazon, and I'm preparing to release the 5th Divide book as well.
Now, you have a Facebook page or a website. How can
I
people
do.
look you up?
So my author page is Micah A. Hutchins, author. You can find that on Facebook. If you just type in Micah A. Hutchins, author, it'll pop right up. That has links to my website, but you can also go to www.micahahutchins.com. And that has
Okay.
links to my Facebook page, to all the books that are for sale on Amazon, and all of my short stories. So if you want to get a taste of my writing before you actually buy the book, you can get a taste for that.
Well, now how on earth do you have time to do this? Or when do you make time to do this?
Well, I had free time when I was just newly married. It was just me, and on my off time I did it. I have a 3-month-old baby now, so it's takes up a little more of my time. But at night I try to sit down and write. In the afternoons on my days off, it's a hobby for me to write, and I love doing it. And I just constantly have ideas in my head that I like to implement into stories. So I have a folder that's this long in of just Microsoft Word documents of started stories that I would like to publish throughout my lifetime, but it just takes time to sit down and write them.
Well, I can picture this happening for you because I started reading it and it's very interesting and it gets you right at the beginning. And you just have a flair for the dramatics. So, how are some ways this guy survives in New York City when you say it's completely lawless?
Well, so in the book you deal with the NYPD. They harass people for money, for resources, for women, whatever it is. They kind of insert themselves into all these situations. So Nolan, my main character, he gets himself in some hot water when he sees this girl kind of wandering out in the open, which everybody in New York City at this time knows you don't hang out in the open, especially not in the daytime, because you don't want to be harassed by the NYPD. So she is just kind of carelessly in the open, and she gets spotted by some NYPD officers. And that's kind of the moral dilemma he runs into, which is, I'm just going to leave her. She put herself in this situation. She's not my problem. And he can't let somebody, be seemingly killed by the NYPD later down the road. So he
Right.
inserts himself into that situation.
Well, Micah, thanks so much for explaining your work to us, and I can't wait to see the rest of the series. And I want everybody to check out your Facebook page, your website. Just say it again before we say goodbye.
Sure. It's Micah A. Hutchins, author, is my Facebook page, and then www.micahahutchins.com. And you can get the ebook for 99 cents and the first book for $10 if you prefer a hard copy.
Okay. And if somebody else wants to interview you, how do they reach you? Just do you have an email?
Sure, I do. My email is micahahutchins.com. I'm sorry, at gmail.com. So that'll
Okay.
be MICAHAHUTCHINS at
I like
gmail.com.
I like your sweatshirt. You've got the divide. You've got
Yeah, I hope to have some sweatshirts and t-shirts out coming up over the summer, and some mugs as well that'll be available from my website for people to kind of get excited about the upcoming stories.
Well, I am excited. So thank you so much, Micah. I'd love to have you on again next time you write a book.
All right, thank you.
All right. Take care.